Julian ripped up my love letter. Furious, I stayed up all night writing a revenge plan. When I turn 18, I am going to screw Julian. When he found it, he was so scared he started avoiding me. On my 18th birthday, he hid at the office and got blackout drunk. When I went to pick him up, he mumbled, "Lily, you shouldn't feel that way about me. Our relationship can't be twisted into that." Julian isn't that much older than me, but he always acts like he's the patriarch of the family. The second I'd climb a tree to raid a bird's nest, he'd have someone toss spiders up after me. I'd mention I didn't like vegetables, and he'd start making me vegetable patties for every single meal. The day I graduated, I got my first ever love letter. Before I could even read it, Julian snatched it, crumpled it up in front of me, and tossed it in the trash. He looks shady. A bad character. Don't associate with people like that. I was fuming. I stomped over and demanded, "How could you just make that decision for me?" Julian didn't get angry. He just gave me a cool, dismissive glance. "Because I'm the one who raised you. And I'm responsible for every part of your life." That one sentence completely deflated me. Without realizing it, I'd been living with the Pearsons for years. Julian's younger brother, Ryan, is my age. We grew up together. Ryan was a terrible student who wouldn't listen to anyone, but when I was the one tutoring him, he'd actually pay attention. As kids, we didn't know any better, so I was always at their house playing with him, staying long after dark. Later, my parents had to move for work, but the schools there weren't as good. They didn't have time to travel back and forth to take care of me. Just when they were at a loss, Julian spoke up and asked me to stay. "We'll take care of Lily. She's a good companion for Ryan, and she can be his little tutor." Over the years I lived with them, I single-handedly dragged my childhood friend from the bottom of the class to the top 5 in his grade. So, even though I was mad, I knew deep down that I'd been living off the Pearsons for years. I sulked off to complain to Ryan. "Your brother is the worst, isn't he? You think he's terrible, right?" The second his college entrance exams were over, Ryan had glued himself to his game console. He sat there, nodding fiercely. "That guy's a total monster. I'm gonna take him down one day." The saying "the oldest brother is like a father" fit Julian perfectly. Mr. and Mrs. Pearson were often away, so whenever there was a problem, the school would call Julian directly. I remember the time Julian found out Ryan skipped class. He dragged him out of an internet cafe and practically tied him to a tree to teach him a lesson. After witnessing that, I'd always been a little scared of him. I didn't dare say anything, just bottled up my anger. Finally, echoing Ryan's sentiment, I scrawled a threat in my diary. "When I turn 18, I am going to screw Julian." I wrote it and forgot to put the diary away. Julian saw it when he was tidying up my room. The moment I saw the color drain from his face, I thought my life was over. Julian stiffly put the diary down, a look of pure shock on his face. He hesitated, unable to say a single word. Finally, he threw out a "come down for dinner," and fled the room. After that day, I barely saw Julian. Even when he was home, he seemed to be deliberately avoiding me. Until I got a call from his assistant. "Lily, Mr. Pearson has had too much to drink. Would you be able to come pick him up?" When I got to his office, Julian was passed out on the large bed in his private lounge. He was unconscious, his hair a mess. His shirt was half unbuttoned, revealing a chest that rose and fell with each breath. I called his name a couple of times, but he didn't respond. Julian is almost 6'3", way bigger than me. I tried several times but couldn't even get him to sit up. Sweating and exhausted, I finally gave up and called Ryan for help. After I explained the situation, Ryan's tone turned strange. I've never in my life heard of someone signing a few documents in their office and getting wasted. My phone's volume was on high, so I could hear everything clearly without it even being next to my ear. On the bed, the supposedly unconscious Julian seemed to quietly clench his jaw. Ryan kept rambling. "You're gonna lie to me, you could at least come up with a better story." Did all of the family drivers take a vacation at the same time? And all the assistants at the company quit today, too? Why not call me? I'm 6'2", I work out. I could have picked him up. Besides, in all these years, I've never once seen my brother get drunk. Ryan was about to say more, but the phone was suddenly snatched from my hand and the call ended. I turned my head and saw Julian was awake. He tossed the now silent phone aside. He looked vaguely annoyed. I had a last-minute networking thing. I had a little to drink, but then I remembered I had work to finish, so I had the driver bring me back. The alcohol hit me and I got sleepy, so I took a nap. Julian rattled off the explanation, then looked down and started buttoning his shirt, covering up the muscles from his years of working out. He looked pale. Worried, I reached out and touched his forehead. His skin was burning up. Are you running a fever? You're so hot. Julian's expression didn't change. I'm fine. What's this blue pill on your desk? Are you sick? Did you just take medicine? I reached for the box to read the label. The phone next to the box lit up, and a message from his assistant popped up on the lock screen. Trust me, Julian. This stuff is potent. It won't let you down. Before I could get a better look, Julian had pocketed his phone and thrown the pillbox into the trash. I'm fine. Let's go home. The last time I'd seen Julian was on my birthday. He dropped off a cake, said he had urgent business to attend to, and left. I could feel it. He was avoiding me on purpose. I'd been debating whether to apologize for what I wrote in my diary. It was just something I'd scribbled down in a fit of anger. But I never got the chance. Standing in the elevator with Julian, the silence was awkward. After a long moment, Julian was the one to speak first. That day, I saw what you wrote in your diary. My heart leaped into my throat. Julian hesitated. You shouldn't feel that way about me. Our relationship can't be twisted into that. He turned his head away, his voice dropping. I've been thinking about it for a while. Maybe I didn't handle our dynamic correctly. It's my fault, and I should take responsibility. I started waving my hands frantically. No. You don't have to take responsibility. It's my fault. The last time Julian took responsibility, it was for Ryan skipping class, and he ended up tied to a tree. The memory was still fresh. I forced myself to apologize. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have felt that way about you. Besides, it's all in the past now. Let's just forget about it. Julian's body stiffened for a second. He slowly turned his head back to me, a bitter smile on his face, his voice laced with disappointment. Yeah, in the past. It's already been half a month since your 18th birthday. I was too late. When we got downstairs, we ran right into Ryan, who was about to get on the elevator. Ryan dangled his car keys at me. I was worried about you, so I figured I'd come check. I was ready to accept you were just messing with me. I didn't think you were actually telling the truth. I hadn't gotten my driver's license yet. Julian had been drinking. That left Ryan as the only one who could drive. I sat in the passenger seat, complaining about Ryan's lack of faith in me. We bickered back and forth, but Julian, in the back seat, was completely silent. He just watched us. I turned around, wanting to start a conversation with him to ease the tension. But the moment Julian felt my gaze, he looked away. All I caught was a glimpse of his reddened eyes. Julian remained silent the whole way. Even after we got out of the car, he went upstairs with a grim expression. Watching his back, I couldn't help but worry. I remembered how hot he'd felt back at the office. And that little pill on his desk didn't look like fever medicine. I figured it must have been some kind of cold medicine. I still felt uneasy, so I found some fever reducers and took them to his room. I knocked for a while, but no one answered. I called out tentatively, Julian? I'm bringing you something. I'm coming in. Still no reply. I took a deep breath and opened the door, planning to just leave the medicine on his nightstand. The lights were off in the room, and I could only see the silhouette of a person on the bed. Julian's breathing was heavy, he was clearly awake. I went over and felt his forehead. Still burning. "Julian, I brought you some fever medicine. Let me get it for you." As I reached for the pills, Julian grabbed my hand. His voice was hoarse and sounded strange. "I don't have a fever. I don't have a cold." He guided my hand under the blanket covering his lap. "It won't go down. What do I do? It hurts so much. Lily, help me. I promise I won't make a sound. Ryan will never find out." My brain turned to mush. I just stood there, frozen. All I remember is Julian pulling my hand, repeating my name over and over, his voice thick with desire, his eyes locked on mine. I was so flustered my face felt like it was on fire, and I could hear my own heart pounding. I don't even remember how it ended. I stumbled downstairs in a daze. For a long time afterward, my left hand, from my fingertips to my palm, was still tingling. Just then, Ryan got up for a midnight snack, looking for coconut water in the kitchen. He saw me standing foolishly at the kitchen entrance and asked, "What are you doing up? Can't sleep?" His question pulled me back from my daze. I looked down awkwardly and mumbled, "Just doing some handiwork." Back in my room, I tossed and turned all night, my mind filled with the image of the throbbing vein in my palm. No, my mind was filled with Julian in my palm. What did he mean by that? Did he like me? But something felt off. After a restless night, I woke up with huge dark circles under my eyes. All night, I'd imagined 1,000 different ways Julian might react when he saw me the next day. Would he confess his feelings? Or would he apologize and say last night was just a moment of weakness? But it turned out I had been overthinking things. Julian was acting no different than usual. He sat down for breakfast, checked his work messages, and didn't spare me a single glance. It was the same as before. Even colder, actually. I finally had to go over and bring it up myself. I said, a little shyly, about last night. Julian looked up at me. Before I could form the rest of the sentence, Ryan came over. He stared at the glass of milk in his hand with disgust. "I don't want this. I want soy milk. Where are the soybeans?" Julian glanced at the milk, then looked away as if he'd been burned. He cleared his throat and said coldly, "Go ask Ms. Wang." He subtly shifted his chair away from me. Then his eyes flickered between me and Ryan before he fell silent again. After less than a minute, he shot up as if he was escaping, tossed out "I'm heading to the office," and left. He walked so fast, it was like a demon was chasing him. I just stood there like an idiot, my head full of question marks. So what was that? What was I last night? A good Samaritan? A craft enthusiast? Ryan was in the kitchen making soy milk, the blender whirring loudly. I sat in the living room, fuming, with a million things to say and no one to say them to. To think I was actually worried he was sick last night and brought him medicine. A light bulb went off in my head. I remembered the blue pill I saw in his office. Connecting that to Julian's state last night, I think I suddenly understood what that pill was. My eyes widened, and only one thought remained in my mind. Julian's got ED. Last night, I stumbled upon his secret, and then he brought up my diary. Old grudges and new. So was last night a warning? Was his coldness today his way of distancing himself, a hint for me to keep my mouth shut and protect his secret? Julian is 28 and still single. If people found out about this, it would be more than just a matter of dignity. But the only people who can truly keep a secret are the dead. Ryan brought me a glass of the freshly made soy milk. Want some? I stared at him grimly and couldn't help but say, "Your family is full of dark secrets." Julian came home in the afternoon. I was the only one in the living room. I immediately went on high alert. As Julian was changing his shoes, his eyes swept across the living room, as if looking for someone. When he saw it was just me, he visibly relaxed. He came over to me and asked, "Were you waiting for me?" A faint smile touched his lips as he reached for my wrist. "This is too obvious. He'll notice. Come on, let's go upstairs." His gentle voice sounded like a death knell in my ears. I jumped up and took 2 steps back. "No, I can't. I have things to do. I have to go out." Julian's brow furrowed slightly. "What do you have to do?" I ran upstairs and dragged the sleeping Ryan, who was catching up on his all-nighter, back down with me. "I have to go practice driving." "I won't bother you, Julian." The moment I shoved Ryan into the car, I felt a strange sense of relief. Ryan was still in his SpongeBob pajamas, his eyes half open. "You're practicing driving. Why do you need me to come with you?" I looked at him with a dead serious expression. "If I die, you can be a witness." Ryan's expression became complicated. "Lily, has the stress of the driving test finally broken you?" I dragged Ryan around from sunset until the moon was high in the sky. We lingered at a barbecue stand until the middle of the night. I figured Julian would definitely be asleep by then, so I finally dared to go home. Seeing the living room was dark, I breathed a sigh of relief. Before the sigh was even out, the living room lights clicked on. Julian was standing right in front of me. I was still squatting on the floor, frozen in the act of changing my shoes. I looked up at him, and a cold sweat broke out on my back. Julian was very strict. No staying out all night was one of the rules. In all these years, I had never dared to come home after 10. Julian's expression was calm. He glanced at me, then at Ryan, before looking away. "Get some rest." He was still wearing the same clothes from the day, as if he hadn't done anything since he got back. He'd just been waiting for us in the living room. Just to say that. From a distance, Julian's back looked a little lonely. Ryan scratched his head, feeling like he was dreaming. "It's after 1 in the morning, and my brother didn't kill me?" Wait, maybe he already killed me and this is just my last dying hallucination. I went upstairs to my room to wash up. When I came out, I saw Julian standing by my bed. He placed a cup of warm water with brown sugar on my nightstand. "It's your period. Don't let Ryan drag you around so much." After he said it, he seemed to realize something was off about his words. He looked down and added, as if to correct himself, "I didn't mean anything by it. I just mean, I hope you love yourself before you love others." Realizing he was talking too much, he shut up and ended the topic. "Get some rest. I'm going to bed, too." With that, Julian turned and left. I held the cup, the warmth spreading from my palms until my whole body felt warmer. When I was little, my health wasn't great. My parents were always fighting back then, and whenever they fought about getting a divorce, I would be dragged in as an outlet for their anger. My mom would shove me toward my dad. "She's your family's spawn, you deal with her. I'm not taking her." My dad would push me back. "She came out of your stomach. Who knows whose kid she is? Don't expect me to take the fall." After a few pushes, I'd be thrown out the door and told to go find my real dad, to get lost. I got used to squatting in the yard, waiting for them to finish fighting so I could sneak back in. One winter, their fights were especially frequent. I was often thrown out in just my pajamas. They'd get so caught up in their arguing that they'd forget about me. I'd be left shivering in the cold. One day, Ryan came over to play and saw me sitting alone by the door. He gave me his jacket and took me to his house. That's when I first met his older brother. Julian is 10 years older than me. He was just a teenager back then, but he seemed much more mature than his peers. He found some ointment for frostbite and gently applied it to my purple fingers. "Girls can't get cold. From now on, if you have nowhere to go, just come here." It seems that's when I started spending all my time at the Pearsons' house, often forgetting to go home. Later, my parents left, and I just stayed. At first, I didn't understand what Julian meant by "girls can't get cold." Not until I got my first period and was in so much pain I couldn't get out of bed. The doctor said the cold had caused lasting damage to my body. Julian often picked up my medicine for me. It took years of care before my health improved. I never thought that after all this time, Julian would still remember. I held the warm cup, a pang of guilt in my heart. I had been thinking the worst of him. Julian was actually a really good person. However, the next day, I realized I had been a bit too optimistic. Julian was still ignoring me. Especially when Ryan was around. He treated me like I was invisible. When I spoke to him, he'd reply in a formal, business-like tone, more polite than a telemarketer. After having my kindness thrown back in my face, I got angry, too. Julian would only talk to me when it was just the two of us. Lily, a coworker, said there's a new movie out that's really good. Want to go together tomorrow? I mirrored the cold attitude he'd given me that morning. Sorry, I'm busy. Then I went upstairs and dragged Ryan out. Come on, you're helping me practice driving. Julian just stood there, watching with a wounded expression as Ryan and I left. It was like Julian had split personality disorder, a different person in the morning versus the evening. In the morning, he was as cold as a stranger. At night, he'd become incredibly gentle. Julian, there's a great new restaurant I heard about. I waved him off. I have to practice driving. Julian, want to go to a haunted house? I'd grab Ryan. Sorry, gotta practice driving. Ryan was basically nocturnal. He'd stay up all night and sleep all day. Now he was staying up all night and getting dragged out by me to practice driving during the day. After a few days, he couldn't take it anymore. He finally confronted me. What's gotten into you lately? I've never seen you this motivated before. I tried to appease him with some ice cream and took the opportunity to vent. Does your brother hate me? If he hates me, why doesn't he just say so? Am I some kind of pet? He plays with me when he's happy, then wants nothing to do with me when he's not. I already apologized about the diary, but he's still holding it against me. He's a grown man, why is he so petty? Ryan's face went through a whole spectrum of colors. After the initial shock, his expression slowly turned mischievous. He looked down at me, the corners of his lips curling into a smirk, as if he was cooking up a plan. He drew out his words, oh. He really is the worst, isn't he? It was like Ryan had become a different person. He stopped gaming, stopped staying up all night. Whenever he had free time, he was glued to my side. One evening, he even put on a trashy soap opera and watched it with great interest. The plot was basically about a young, beautiful wife who gets bored and starts an affair with her husband's older brother. The older brother flaunts his relationship in front of the younger brother, even preparing to defy his entire family to marry the woman. But just as the older brother is about to tell his family, the woman dumps him and gets back with her husband. The older brother is left weeping alone in the wedding suite he never got to use. Ryan had the volume turned way up. Julian was in the kitchen preparing dinner, not saying a word, even more silent than usual. As we watched, Ryan started commentating. The brother is a whole decade older than her. She says she wants cake, and he'd probably bring home a bag of old-fashioned cookies. Who could handle an age gap like that? Besides, guys are basically past their prime after 25. He can't compete with a younger guy. She was just having some fun. There's no way she was actually serious about him. Ryan was really getting into it. On the screen, the sound of the older brother wailing in the wedding suite came to an abrupt halt. Julian was standing there, holding the TV's power cord, which he tossed to the side. No TV during dinner. He looked down, silently placing the dishes on the table. Then he took off his apron and turned to leave. Julian, aren't you eating? He kept his head down, so I couldn't see his face. He just mumbled a yeah, his voice trembling slightly. I'm not hungry. You guys go ahead. Then he just went upstairs. Not long after, we heard a boo-hoo-hoo sound. I glanced at the TV. Didn't he unplug it? Why is it still making noise? I looked at the power cord on the floor and slowly realized the sound was coming from upstairs. I was about to go check on him when Ryan grabbed my arm. He looked like he was trying to suppress a huge grin. It's nothing. Just my new electric kettle. That night, I went to my room to sleep, but in the middle of the night, I heard a noise downstairs. I thought it was Julian, hungry and looking for a midnight snack. He'd made dinner for us. If he wanted a late-night meal, of course I should be the one to cook it for him. I got up and went downstairs, only to find the living room empty. The TV that had taken up half the wall was gone. Julian was standing in his pajamas in front of the blank wall, looking dazed. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were red and swollen, as if he'd just been crying. I stared at the empty wall, thinking I was dreaming. Where's the TV? Julian sniffled. It broke. I had someone take it to get fixed. I asked quietly, they came to fix it in the middle of the night? He didn't say anything, just kicked a few small pieces of broken screen under the sofa. I wisely decided to drop the subject. You didn't eat anything tonight. I'll go make some noodles. We can eat together. Julian nodded and sat obediently at the dining table. I glanced at the clock. At this hour, Ryan's probably still awake. I'll go ask if he wants some. I had just started up the stairs when Julian grabbed my arm. He looked like he wanted to say something, but it took him a moment before he finally mumbled, he went out. It was almost midnight. He went out this late? I'd seen Ryan wash his face and brush his teeth earlier, getting ready for bed. Julian just nodded. He's preparing for his graduation party. I privately marveled at how proactive Ryan was being. I never would have guessed. It had been raining a lot lately. Hiding inside and eating hot noodle soup while it poured outside was the best feeling. Julian was unusually quiet tonight. Just as we were finishing our late-night snack, he suddenly spoke. I won't be like that brother on TV, so clueless and annoying. It took me a second to realize which brother he was talking about. The one who was the other man. Why would anyone see themselves in such a terrible character? Julian looked down, pushing the few remaining noodles around in his bowl. His voice was muffled. And guys aren't that bad after 25. Being older has its advantages. The topic made the atmosphere a bit strange. I thought for a long time but couldn't figure out how to respond. Realizing he was talking to himself, Julian finally went quiet. Let's eat. Finish up and get some rest. While Julian was washing the dishes, I went upstairs to my room. The rain got heavier, and thunder started to roll. Ever since I was a kid, I've been a little scared of thunderstorms. The booming sound always made me feel like the next bolt of lightning was going to strike me. My door opened. I saw Julian walk in, carrying his pillow. He always knew I was afraid of thunder. He lay down on the edge of the bed. Don't be scared. I'm here with you. Maybe being older really did have its advantages. In my mind, Julian had always been a very reliable person. Just hearing his breathing and feeling his presence beside me was enough to slowly chase away my fear. As I drifted off to sleep, my mind started to wander. Julian said Ryan went out to prepare for a graduation party. My own parents had never mentioned anything about it. Even when I told my dad my exam scores, he just said and quickly hung up. I'd heard Mr. Pearson mention my dad had started another branch company somewhere. He was probably busy. I'll call my mom tomorrow, I thought. The next morning, I called my mom bright and early. I had so much I wanted to tell her. I got into my dream university. I've been really happy lately. How have you been? When can I come home? I'm all grown up now. I can cook, I can do laundry and clean, I don't need anyone to take care of me anymore. I'm not a burden anymore. When the call connected, a young boy's voice answered, "Can I help you?" He sounded like he was 7 or 8. It took me a moment to process. Is the owner of this phone there? I'm her daughter. The boy on the other end seemed confused for a moment, then called out to someone else. "Mom, someone named Lily is calling you." I could faintly hear the sound of a range hood in the background. My mom seemed to answer him. There was a man's voice, too. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but I could tell it wasn't my dad's. I quietly hung up and stared at my phone in a daze. That boy didn't know me, but he knew my name was Lily. He must have seen it in the contacts. My mom didn't save my name as daughter. She saved it like I was a stranger, just my first and last name. Numbly, I searched for my parents' names online. Entrepreneurs aren't like celebrities, their private lives don't get a lot of attention. After a lot of scrolling, I found a news report about my dad from several years ago. He was standing in a hospital, holding a little girl. The woman standing beside him didn't look much older than me. The headline was something about my family heiress making her first public appearance. But that girl wasn't me. I kept scrolling and found the news of my parents' divorce. After the divorce, my dad had married a much younger, beautiful woman. She had given him a son and a daughter. A happy family of 4. Though I couldn't find anything about what my mom did after, based on the phone call, it seemed she had remarried too. And had a son. I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. I tried to call my mom back to confirm. But when I dialed again, the line was busy. Before she blocked me, she sent me a text. "I wasn't planning on telling you, but since you know now, let's just go our separate ways. Please don't disturb my family again." I stared at the words, tears spilling from my eyes. Julian appeared in front of me and took my phone. His cool fingertips wiped the tears from my face. "Lily, don't cry. I will always be by your side." After I cried, my head felt clearer. Why did my dad suddenly move away for work when his business was doing so well here? The excuse about the schools being bad and not being able to take care of me was just that, an excuse. My parents' relationship had always been terrible. My dad was a chauvinist, and my mom was just as headstrong. They had gotten to the point where they were like enemies. Even me, the child who shared their blood, was despised by them. Even after they divorced, either of them could have easily taken me with them, but they both cruelly abandoned me. I asked Julian, "Why did you ask me to stay back then?" He hesitated, then finally asked me in return, "If I hadn't, do you know what would have happened to you?" He was being vague, but I wasn't a child anymore. I understood. If they were the kind of people who could throw me out in thin pajamas on a cold winter night just because they were fighting, then if they truly wanted to abandon a child under 10, there were a million irresponsible ways to do it. If it weren't for Julian, an orphanage would have been my final destination. So I wasn't just being fostered. I was abandoned. I'm not a kid anymore. I can take care of myself. I've already troubled the Pearsons for so many years, I can't just keep living off them. I quietly started calculating how much I'd cost them over the years, thinking I'd pay them back properly after I graduated. I went to find Julian and told him I was thinking of moving out. He pursed his lips and asked hesitantly, "Why?" I gave him a casual excuse, "I want to live closer to campus, get familiar with the area." Julian just nodded, not saying much more. Ryan happened to come home and overheard me. As I was turning the corner, I couldn't help but look back. I saw Ryan circling Julian with a smug, gloating look on his face. "Hey bro, Lily's dumping you." While I was packing, I found an old notebook. The pages were yellowed, it looked like it was from many years ago. It was filled with Julian's handwriting. Ryan's new friend came over. "She's such a good, smart kid. How could her parents hate her? The Millers are fighting again. I heard they're getting a divorce and starting to divide assets." I casually asked about custody today. Mr. Miller was evasive, said he was thinking of letting Lewis raise Lily. I know who that Lewis is. He's a monster. He's adopted 6 kids, and not a single one has survived more than a month with him. I begged my father, told him I would take care of Lily, and pleaded with him to get her. She deserves a wonderful life, not to be buried in the cold ground. She came over today. I asked her parents to put on a show, so a child so young wouldn't have to endure such a painful separation. I thought girls were supposed to be quiet, but that was just a rumor. She climbs trees, scales walls, and raids birds' nests. She's even more mischievous than Ryan. I have to find a way to stop this. I don't want her to get hurt. She doesn't like vegetables. A picky diet will lead to malnutrition. She's afraid of thunder. She seems happy at our house. I think she's gained a little weight. The entire notebook, line by line, was about me. Every single one of my habits, recorded in his careful script. I was a castaway, yet someone had treasured me this much. I stared at the notebook, lost in thought. I only looked up when someone entered my room. Julian looked like he had been wrestling with himself for a long time. Tears were still clinging to his eyelashes as he stood a short distance away, watching me. He tried to step closer several times but always retreated, finally asking in a small, hoarse voice. "Lily, can you please not go? I was so angry last night, that's why I threw Ryan out. I knew you were scared of the thunder, and I selfishly stayed by your side. I know that if Ryan hadn't left, that spot next to you should have been his. This is the first time I've done something like this. I have no experience, and I can't control my emotions. I was so scared you would dump me like in that TV show." By the end, Julian's voice was choked with sobs. "I saw what you wrote in your diary. I couldn't accept it at first, that's why I didn't respond. I finally convinced myself that it was okay, that I'd even be the other man. I was ready to throw away all my morals and decency, but then. You didn't want me anymore. Lily, I won't make things difficult for you again. I don't need a title. I'll be your lover, or I'll just be your brother. Don't go. Please don't leave me." Julian's words shattered the warm, fuzzy feeling the diary had given me. My head was full of question marks. What on earth was he talking about? I said tentatively, "Maybe we should start from the beginning and explain everything." Julian rambled on about the torment, pain, and shame he felt when he saw my diary. I thought about it for a long time before I decided to respond to your feelings and agree to do that thing with you. I heard that guys aren't usually very good their first time, so I even took that pill and pretended to be asleep to make it easier for you, but you weren't interested. It was like you'd lost interest. Then Ryan told me you two started dating on your 18th birthday. You waited for me so late that night, but I never showed up, so you said yes to his confession. Ryan, who had been nervously pacing in the hallway, froze when he heard that, his hair standing on end. He yelled, "I was drunk yesterday and talking in my sleep. Nothing I said counts." Then he pointed at me, ready to sell out his teammate. "What she wrote in her diary doesn't mean what you think it means. She meant she wanted to." That's exactly what I meant. I have a secret crush on Julian, so I wrote it in my diary. I cut Ryan off without a second thought. Ryan's face twisted in anger, pointing at me, speechless. If Ryan was going to sell me out, then I wasn't going to hold back either. I threw my arms around Julian's arm and pointed at Ryan. "Babe, he's trying to break us up." Ryan, still bitter about how strict Julian used to be, took every opportunity to mess with him. He'd make up crazy stories behind his back, deliberately lying to Julian about me dating him. He'd hide in the corner, cackling with glee as he watched Julian suffer. After I exposed him, Julian chased him around the house. Ryan ended up slipping on the stairs and falling, wincing in pain and refusing to eat for a whole day out of pure spite. Once Julian had vented his anger, he came to ask me, "So why did you suddenly want to move out?" I pushed down my earlier, more distant thoughts and complained, "You were always avoiding me. I thought I was getting in your way, that I was annoying you, so I wanted to move out." Julian just smiled, exasperated. He shot a look at Ryan, who was playing dead on the bed, and said slowly, "You know, this place isn't great. It's far from your school, and we seem to have a pest problem lately. Let's move out." As I was packing, I made sure to take Julian's notebook. I leaned against him, flipping through the pages, and all the sadness in my heart was washed away by love. The truth is, the moment I met Julian, my misfortune ended. From now on, there would only be happiness.